Everybody hear me okay? I will try to talk loud enough to let you hear me. I was at an event today, and I heard the governor tell a story, and he accredited it to Mark Twain, and I'll do the same. But he said that Mark Twain has said that a lie can get halfway around the world before the truth can even get its pants on. And I want to tell you, there are always, in politics and in community, especially a small town like ours, there's always rumors going around, always something going around that's negative, people want to repeat and say. But what I'm proud of most about our community is all of the good things that are said about it and all of the good things that you can experience in it. And we've all experienced the tornado together, and we've all experienced what's happened afterward, which is this great coming together of people in this community and people from across the state and really across the country coming in, helping us rebuild our community. I was talking to somebody from the insurance commissioner's office today, and he said, well, how's it going up there? How's the rebuilding going? I said, look, about half the houses that were destroyed or damaged in the tornado didn't have any kind of homeowners insurance coverage to help them fix the homes. We've gone from an insurance recovery program to now what you can only call as a charitable recovery program, and we've continued to see crews come in week after week to help in a volunteer reconstruction effort on homes all across our town that would not have been able to be rebuilt, would just be subject to being condemned and torn down if it wasn't for your efforts and your help and the coordinating of all of the efforts through the local leaders in this community. I want to say special thanks to the police chief and the mayor and my dad, Ken Coomer, and everybody who had any part and who continues to have part in getting our community back on track and recovering our community. You all have done a great job. Thank you very much for your help. I want to talk about, I'm going to mention 5 things real quickly, and then I'm going to let you ask any questions. I have to be really brief because Senator Loudermilk's daughter is having her birthday tonight, and I told him if he let me go first, I would use that as an excuse to keep it real short. So I'm going to be as quick as I can. I want to talk to you about 5 things. The 5 things are all numbers. I'm going to talk to you about 188, 327, 318, 140, and 411. Okay? 5 things, real quick. Here we go. 188, House Bill 188. And these are all really focused on economic development and what we're doing in the General Assembly with the governor's leadership to focus on economic development and job recovery in Georgia, particularly North Georgia. 188, House Bill 188 was the Veterans Workforce Bill. That is a bill designed to get veterans who are leaving active service back into the workforce more quickly by allowing them to get into skilled trades by exempting some of the requirements. It also allows for military spouses coming to Georgia with their military member to have their skilled trade certification recognized, if they have one in another state, recognized by Georgia. So they get to work more quickly. Less people on unemployment, more people on the tax, and more people being taxed and working, helping us all support our state. That's number 1. 237, House Bill 237, is also focused on economic development and growth. And that is the bill that reinstated the HOPE grant requirement for maintaining HOPE grants in the technical college system of Georgia back to the 2011 level, which was to require a 2.0 GPA. It allows more people to qualify for the grant, more people to get skilled certification and get back to work more quickly. The third one is House Bill 318. House Bill 318 is a modification of the existing tourism development bill. And the reason that one is important is because it had a very Bartow County specific issue that we were trying to fix. And that is basically allowing local governments to have more control over what happens when the state incentivizes a company to come in and do economic development in the tourism industry. It would essentially allow Bartow County and the city of Emerson down on the south end of the county to not lose millions of dollars in revenue that they were going to be losing because of essentially a miswrite in the old bill. So we got that corrected. And 140, this is issue number 4. Number 140, that's the highway, in case you're wondering. Highway 140 is on schedule. We are actually doing the right-of-way purchases now, and we have only a few lot owners remaining who we're still dealing with to try to get those folks squared away. It's on schedule. It's going forward. We're going to see a widened 140 in the near future. The last one I'll talk about, the last number, 411. I know the 411 connector is not as big an issue up here as it is in the southern part of my district, down around Cassville. But the 411 connector has become a national focus flashpoint issue between the environmentalist lobbyists who don't want us to build any more roads at all and the state and federal departments of transportation who are now locked in battle over whether or not private groups are able to stop the construction of 411 connector. I can tell you the governor's office, the Department of Transportation, my office, up and down the line through Congress and Senate, we're all committed to seeing the 411 connector project finished and on the route that it's designed to be built. And so that's it. That's what I'm going to say to you. I'm open for questions, or I can sit down and let somebody else talk. Any questions? Yes, sir.
I need to talk to you. I got something I need to let you look at.
Okay. My billing rate, Deborah can tell you about my billing rate. All right. Anybody else got a question for right now? All right. Well, let me introduce, you want me to do that or you want to do it? I'm going to introduce our next speaker, who is a friend of mine and my predecessor in this office, who is now one of our state senators. Adairsville is so important, we now have 2 state senators. And they're both here tonight, and I'm thankful for that. But our next speaker is Senator Barry Loudermilk, who is the chairman of Science and Technology in the Senate and is likely to be, keep your fingers crossed, our next congressman. So come on up, Senator/Congressman Loudermilk.
Well, I appreciate that, Christian, or Representative Coomer. One thing you're blessed with here is a really good delegation. Everybody in our delegation has always worked well together. Besides just being colleagues in the House and the Senate, we're personal friends. And that means a lot to have good relationships, because what we do in our business, which is a part-time business for us, is all about relationships, regardless of what party you're in, regardless of what your beliefs are. It's all about having good relationships, not only with each other, but also with our constituents. And I want to talk to you just a few minutes, and I'll take some questions. And I apologize, I've got to leave early. It's my daughter's 23rd birthday. And it seems like for the past several years, we have always been doing something on our kid's birthday. So this year we tried to actually do what we can to celebrate on her birthday. And so she's actually teaching a class right now, and they're going to be finished in a little bit, and so we're going to head down and celebrate her birthday with her. And so I ask your indulgence there. I apologize that we're going to have to speak and run, but I'll try to take a few questions. I'm sorry? Well, I hadn't had any cake yet. That's why we got to leave to go pick it up. So, not that I will be allowed to have any, that is. But I want to talk to you just a couple of minutes about the future. You know, as we go around the state, I talk to different people. I've got a nonprofit that we travel all over the Southeast, and we talk about government and the foundations of our government. And a lot of people have a lot of concern about the United States of America. I mean, quite honestly, you look at our debt. The debt that the federal government has accrued, if we take every dollar that is generated in income in the entire nation, if everybody was taxed 100%, we still couldn't pay that debt off. I mean, it's overwhelming. You look at Congress continually spending more than it's taking in. The economic recovery is going a lot slower, and a lot of people just have a doom and gloom idea of what's going to happen in the future of our nation. But as I look to the state of Georgia, I think not only does the state of Georgia show a ray of hope for the entire nation, because even through all this economic crisis, we've maintained a balanced budget, which some people said you can't do. Look at California; they're on the verge of bankruptcy. We were able to maintain a balanced budget, not just because the Constitution said we had to, but because it was the commitment of the people of this state and their elected representatives to make sure that we balanced that budget. We've maintained our AAA bond rating, which means the credit of the state of Georgia is solid. But the biggest thing I think to look at is just what I call American exceptionalism. whenever we have faced insurmountable odds, this idea of American exceptionalism has kicked in, and we have defeated anything that we face. I mean, go back and look at the Founding Fathers. And I speak on this quite often. I'll go through a list of issues. And I can go through 13 issues, political issues, that this nation is facing. And I'll ask the people in the audience, does that sound like what we're facing right now? They said, absolutely. You could have taken that out of yesterday's newspaper. And then I informed them that list was actually written in 1774. With the issues they were facing then, we've cycled back around and we're facing those same issues today. They seemed overwhelming back then, but they also were about to take on the mightiest army on the face of the earth. Just a bunch of buckskin-clad merchants and farmers and trappers had this idea that they could take their hunting rifles and what the redcoats called Washington's ragtag rabble, we could actually defeat the mightiest army on the face of the earth. But you know what? We did. We overcame insurmountable odds to do it. When President Kennedy pointed up to the moon and said, we're going to go there and we're going to beat the Russians, most everybody said it was impossible. But the government went out and we created NASA just as an agency to oversee it, went to the American people, to private industry, said get us to the moon. We did it. That's what I call American exceptionalism. That is when Americans get their back against the wall. We use our ingenuity, we use our intelligence, we use the gifts that God gave us, and we overcome. One of the greatest examples I think of this American exceptionalism is right here where we're standing. When you look at what happened with these storms, and the same thing had happened a year earlier when the storms came through Pine Log, just between Adairsville and my home in Cassville. You know, it was devastating then. I do search and rescue in my spare time. I'm trained in ground and air search and rescue, so we volunteer our time to go out and do search and rescue. Chief Millsap, fire chief, called and said, can you get your team together? We're probably going to need some help with search and rescue. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. This was the tornadoes we had a year ago. So we assembled our team the next morning. By about noon, he said, look, Barry, we're not going to need you. I said, really? He said, yeah, because neighbors are coming out and helping neighbors. People are coming with their chainsaws. The churches are out bringing food to the rescue workers. In fact, FEMA wanted to open an office, and they didn't even open because said, we're not needed here. The Red Cross brought their trailer, turned around and went back because neighbors were helping neighbors. I started talking about that, and I got a call from the USA Today. They wanted to do an interview, and they wanted to hear this doom and gloom story about how devastating the tornadoes were in Bartow County. But what I started talking about was how neighbors were helping neighbors, how the churches came out and started helping people, how FEMA came in and turned around and left because we didn't need it. We took care of ourselves. And that was the story they ended up writing. And I thought, how great that is. What a great story. Will we ever see that again? Well, we did. In even a greater fashion. Because the churches, like Reverend Coomer, stood up. We said, this isn't about denomination. It's not about political parties. This is about people. It's about neighbors. We're going to come together as a community, and we're going to not only just do the initial response, but we're going to stick with it all the way through till we see our neighbors completely restored. That's the American exceptionalism. That is what built this country. And it isn't gone. It's still here. We can still experience this. And if you look at just the cost savings, I was on Georgia Public Broadcasting. They wanted me to come on after the tornadoes and talk about what was the government's role and how much should the government be involved in the recovery. Well, as I sat down, I said, well, up in Adairsville, very little, because the community came out and neighbors began helping neighbors. And I talked to Chief Millsap, and he said, Barry, just the initial response in the first 4 days of the citizens going out and helping people saved this community $4.5 million. $4.5 million. And I don't know if anybody knows what the total is so far, but I'm sure it's far exceeded that. I sat with the director of GEMA down at the Capitol a couple of weeks ago. The inspiration that this community has given is about to change the face of emergency management, hopefully in this entire state. Some veterans called me and they said, you know what, we're inspired by what happened in Adairsville. we've had people calling saying, what can we do? So I'm working with a group of veterans, former police officers, fire chiefs, doctors. They're forming a 501c3 that can respond anywhere in geographical area of Bartow County, Kennesaw. People are volunteering. We're working with the Georgia Emergency Management Agency. They're going to allow us to go out and do training, get certified. So what happened here in Adairsville can be replicated anywhere throughout Georgia. That's the inspiration that just this community has given, just by neighbors helping neighbors. And I was speaking to a group the other day, and I said, you know, if you could think back again on President Kennedy, and he made that statement, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I think he missed the mark just a little bit. Because I think our new slogan, especially here in this part in Adairsville and Bartow County, is ask not what your government can do for you, but what you're able to do for yourself and for your neighbor. Because you're going to get it done efficiently. And I think that is the attitude we just keep going forward with. We set the standard here. I mean, we showed that churches come together with government. I rode around with the police chief and just saw the devastation the day after it happened. The night it happened, the night of the tornadoes, I was up in Gordon County actually assisting the firemen with search and rescue efforts. And I already saw the neighborhoods coming together, people coming together. And that is just a beautiful sight. That's what American is. That is the American exceptionalism that our founding fathers experienced and have passed on to us. And that's what we need to focus on. And so I'll be glad to answer any questions if anybody has any about this or anything that happened in the legislative session. I just think what happened here in Adairsville just so overshadowed everything else that we did. I even stood up at the state senate the day after it happened, and I had called and I asked, you know, what can we do? They said gift cards. We need gift cards. So I called the lieutenant governor. I was riding around with the police chief here. I called the lieutenant governor. I said, hey, can you put out an email to everybody in the Senate to bring gift cards? We brought in thousands of dollars of gift cards from people from all over the state, from Republicans, Democrats, Independents. It didn't matter because it was about community. And I want to applaud you for what you've done. I mean, everything about Adairsville, with Advance Adairsville, to what you're doing with the GED, this is what America's about. And this is our future. And while everybody else is thinking, oh, it's doom and gloom, we're establishing, no, this is the tradition of America we're going to pass along to our children. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Barry?
Any questions?
I got one. My
Yes,
name's
sir.
John. When I'm 24 years old and I'm paying Social Security tax now, will I get Social Security benefits when I retire?
That's a good question. His question is, you said you're 24 now.
No, I'm 23 now. When I turn 24, when I retire from the workforce, will I be able to get Social Security benefits?
Well, his question is basically, will Social Security be around when you get to retirement age?
Yeah.
That is a great question. Not unless there's some significant changes. I mean, it's just, it's the fact of numbers. We're going to get to a point where there's more drawing because of the lifespan. I mean, again, American exceptionalism, our medical advancements, people are living longer, people are starting to live healthier, and you know, we're outliving what Social Security was designed to sustain. And especially in the economy now, we have fewer contributors because of the smaller workforce. To sustain Social Security, there's going to have to be changes, and it's just part of what we're going to have to do. As society changes, as time changes, as technology changes, we have to be able to change with it. You can't always continue to do things exactly in the way you've done them before. So it's going to need some innovative ideas. If Social Security is going to be available, there's a lot of different ideas out there. We may have to change the eligibility age to raise it up a little more, because if you think of when Social Security was established, it was established based on the longevity, about how long people are going to live. Well, we're living longer now. And so not only do you have more people that are retiring, getting retirement age, they're living longer, so they're staying on Social Security longer, which is a greater draw. So there's some ideas like that. The idea of privatizing, you know, part of Social Security. What we need to do is take all those ideas, combine them together, and see what is going to fit, because I'm not sure it'll be available when I retire, and I'm a little bit closer than you are. So.
You're a whole lot closer than
A whole lot closer, yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm young, so.
Okay, well, I'm 27, so that's okay. Yes, sir.
Can we just hire a hitman to kill off all the old people?
Oh, well. Let's see what happens when you get that age if you still make that same comment.
Then you'll be the old people.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have one. Why do citizens who don't have children in school and still have to pay school taxes? Why?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. That's been an argument over the years. The question is, why do citizens who don't have children in the school system still have to pay the school taxes? And I'll kind of give you both sides of the argument, and I'll tell you where I think we need to go. The one side is your argument. Look, I don't have children in school anymore. I mean, we don't. My children have all graduated. I'm paying property taxes. Why do I have to pay those taxes? Well, the one side says we all benefit from an educated society, so we should all contribute because, you know, a better educated society is a better quality workforce, and so it benefits all of us. Of course, the other side is I'm not getting any direct benefit, so why do I have to continue to pay for that? I think the real issue, and this is a very controversial issue, but I'll explain why. I think the real problem is in the way that we do taxing for schools. All right? Now, let me say this because it does get controversial, and I'll explain why I think we have to change this, is the idea of taxing property. Okay, the property taxes is an issue that we are going to have to address at some point because I think it's one of the most egregious ways of taxing, and this is something that we've gotten into as a state and counties and nations over years, and we've got to figure out a way out of it. Back about 5 years ago, or 4 years ago, right after the economy started its collapse, I got a call from a gentleman in Kingston. He was literally in tears. He was on the phone crying. A Vietnam veteran. He was disabled. He was an invalid. He was losing his home because he couldn't pay the property taxes. Now, this was a home that had been in his family for almost 100 years. The property was totally paid off. His wife had deceased. He was living on Social Security and disability. Most all of the income that he had coming in was going in for food and his medical treatments. VA had done all they could help. He had no income to pay the property taxes. Now, he was going to lose his home that had been paid off. The property was theirs, clear. It belonged to him. But because he couldn't continue to pay property tax or tax on something that he owned, he was going to lose his property. With property taxes, you can never fully own anything as long as the government has a lien on it. And so that's why we've seen there used to be the family farms that were passed down from generation to generation. You don't see that anymore. And a lot of that is because of the way that they can't afford the property taxes. Just because they own it, they've owned it free and clear. They can't afford the property taxes, so they're forced to break this beautiful farmland up that's been used to be the engine of the economy of this state. For many years, they're forced into subdividing that and doing developments, which worked well for a while, and then when the economy collapsed, now we call them pipe farms because they're fields with just white pipes sticking out of them with some roads driven through it. So the answer is we have to find a better way of funding schools. And that's something that we're just going to have to look at in the future. It's not something we can just turn the light switch off tomorrow and say, okay, we're not going to fund education this way anymore. I'm a strong proponent of local control, also meaning at the state level. I think the federal government has too much authority in our states. I think even with this new Common Core curriculum, which is the federal government dictating to every state how they're going to teach. And I've seen some of what that is, and it isn't good. I spoke to the state school superintendent of Texas. He flew in to talk to us about Common Core. Texas did not go that route because he said he even looked at some of the standards and some of the teaching that was going along with it, and he said he was looking through one textbook that met the Common Core standards. He saw the Boston Tea Party in there, and he read it, and they were teaching that the Americans, or the Boston Tea Party, was an act of domestic terrorism by American terrorists who dressed up as Indians. They're no longer teaching literature, they're reading EPA regulations. Math problems are based on carbon dioxide output that's affecting the environment. So these are the types of things that as we change the way we fund education, we also have to be smarter and say, hey, we need to bring that back so we have more control of it ourselves.
Yes.
Well, yes, sir. The question is, when he gets his GED, will he be able to find a job here? I think so, because I think we're heading in the right direction. But the question you have to ask is, you know, you really ask yourself, how am I willing to work? Am I willing to find that job? I think you are. By the fact that you're going out and you're taking the effort to get the GED, that says a lot about yourself. One of the things that I think we're restructuring in America is restoring that desire to do for oneself, to go out and find a job. There are jobs becoming more available all the time. It's going to be slow. The recovery is going to be slow. I don't think we're ever going to go back to this boom economy that we had before, but yet we're starting to see things improve in my own business. I mean, we came close to being out of business myself back a couple of years ago, but because I employed people. It would have been easier for me just to close my doors and go home. But because I employed people that made their living, we put everything we have personally into that business just to keep it afloat. Now we're starting to see it begin recovery again. Most business owners are that way. They want to employ people. And so as we recover, there are going to be more opportunities, especially Bartow County. I mean, look at what's going on here with the Lake Point development. And we've got Vesta Pena coming in. They're coming here for a reason. It's because we're doing the right things in Georgia. We're doing the right things in Bartow County. So I think the answer is yes. You'll be able to find. You may have to look a little harder, but I can bet this community here is going to step in and help you find something.
Yes.
Well, I probably ought to. We got another one? Yes,
I
ma'am.
have one question. My name is Wanda Egan, and I am studying for my GED. Why did the schools in Bartow County run out of food before the kids are fed?
I'm not going to try to talk around that question because that's probably a better question for somebody in the school system.
Okay.
Because in Georgia we're one of, if not the only state that has a local control or local government provision in their constitution. Home rule is what we call it. And so there's certain things that the state says, locals can do better. There's always an argument between us and locals as to what is home rule and what is the state over, controlling. But, we should always make sure that, the kids are getting fed. But we have members of the school board here. You may want to ask that question to them. So.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay, good.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
That's right. But if I don't know an answer, I won't skate around it and tell you. I'll just tell you I don't know the answer to that question, but we can find an answer.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm a school teacher. I would like to say we also have a wonderful backpack program
Yes.
for our children.
Yes.
I teach at a school locally here, and we children that are homeless or do not have anything, we fill up a backpack of food for them for the weekend, which I think is a marvelous program. That's outside the school, isn't it? It's outside the school, but it's
Yeah.
but it's a program that's the community helping our children.
Yeah, but that's only for younger kids in elementary.
I'm
That's
talking
not
about
for
the middle
junior
school and the
high
high
school.
school.
Yeah. High school?
And during the summer,
Because the schools, they run out of food.
At the church down here, and used to over at the S&H, during the summer they give out free lunches for
Yes.
Summer feeding program.
That's community.
Any other question?
I will find.
Actually, I got one. What are you doing to help prevent our retirement funds from being cut?
What are we doing to prevent our retirement funds from being cut? Well, in the state of Georgia, our retirement is put into a separate fund, basically, that the legislature doesn't really touch. Okay, each retirement, whether it's teachers' retirement or government employees' retirement, are kept in separate funds. Those funds are invested, but there are independent investment managers that manage those funds. So they keep the politicians' hands off those. So there's some matching that, the fact is we have to balance the budget, and so you may see some reductions in the contributions by the state, but as the base funds themselves, I don't think you're going to see anything happen to those.
Do you have one more question?
Well, there is one more. Why is our tax money being spent for laptops in classes? iPods and tablets when these teachers need to be paid better?
It's a good question. You have to look at where some of the technology money is probably coming from the Hope Grant. I know some of that happened in the past, which that money, a portion of that is dedicated to technology. And so some of that is going to technology. Again, a lot of those funds are determined by the local school board what they actually spend those funds for.
So all of this, I got to go to school board.
You may have to go to some of that. But I will tell you this, there is an effort in the state of Georgia to move to some more technology, because if you look at the price of textbooks themselves, they are expensive. There's a huge expense, and I actually passed legislation, I guess it was 3 years ago, that allowed the textbook funds that the state allocates to local school systems. We introduced legislation, I passed it in the House, passed the Senate, the governor signed it, that allows that to actually be used in lieu of buying textbooks to buying the technology, because as the textbook change and you have an iPad or an iPod, you don't have to go buy this whole new textbook to replace a few changes that's done electronically, so it can update it. So in the long term, it's cost savings. But those were dedicated for funds that were going directly for textbooks. It just broadened it and said, well, if you're going to spend the money on textbooks and you can save money by buying it electronically, then you can go electronically as well.
They need to pay these teachers too. I'll go to the school board.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Oh, my question just went down the drain.
To deal with the idea that the government is a partner in everything that I offer.
Yeah.
But essentially, you're saying that they are, and you know, I just think that's not what our forefathers intended.
Right.
Are you doing anything to change that situation? Is there anything we can do short of another Tea Party?
Well, I'll answer that in two questions. Is there anything we're doing? Yeah. I mean, it's, as you can imagine, to make overall changes is going to take a lot of effort. Is there anything you can do? Absolutely. You can voice this louder and louder. This whole nation is about we the people. If you want to affect change, people need to get engaged. And I mentioned 1774 earlier, when Thomas Jefferson went through the list of issues that they were facing. He and some others were assigned to a committee. They were in the House of Burgess. And they sat in a room and they determined what is the most dangerous of all these issues, what is the most immediate that we have to address. And of all those issues, they determined that the greatest danger that they were facing was a lethargic people. That the people were not aware of what was happening to their rights and liberties. And they said the most important thing that we can do is awaken the people. Now, the interesting thing that they did is how they determined they would awaken the people is they went to the community. So the House of Burgess unanimously passed a colony-wide day of fasting, humiliation, and prayer, and called for every church in the colony to call the people together for a colony-wide day of fasting and prayer, so they would become alert to the dangers that they were facing. Thomas Jefferson said it was like bolts of electricity surging through the colony, that men became alert and on their center, ready to defend their liberties. We face the same thing today. The people have to be re-engaged in what's going on. I told some folks this recently. You've got to be engaged. You really ought to know who you're voting for. The most dangerous person in America is an uninformed voter. If you go to the polls and you don't know the person you're voting for, you don't know what they believe, you don't know how they would vote in office. Right.
But there's got to be a better system, and somebody needs to quit talking about it and get on with doing it.
And there are people that are doing some things. There's a lot of legislation that gets introduced that'll do a lot of what we're doing, but it doesn't go anywhere because there's not the political will, or quite frankly, people don't want controversy anywhere in their life. Well, you would think all of legislature is all about controversy. But even legislators like to avoid controversy if they can. But a lot of the things that are important to do are those difficult things to do, and they really need the support back home. That's where the Tea Party movement has been very effective in raising that awareness, the knowledge, the understanding of what's going on. Use a biblical reference again. Hosea 4:6 says, "My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge."
Yes.
and that's the thing is we have to be not only educated in our, as my dad would say, book learned, but we also have to be educated about what's going on around us. So, but I appreciate your comments.
Okay. Will it wait for the next one? This man's getting late for his dog.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Barry.
Would you let me introduce Chuck?
Thanks for having me here, and this is a great facility, great weather. The job I have during the day is to put people asleep at the hospital, and my job at night is not to do it as a third speaker. So I'll try to be brief in that when I do it. When I was out campaigning here, and for those of you that don't know the districts, I go from Emerson to Hall Station, all up to Recycle.
Before the train gets here.
The train is in Chuck's district.
Yeah. Oh, he's not gonna beat till I talk or what?
I'd like to use this minute for all the students, the teenage students. You've been in the class.
Think I'm safe now? Okay. Well, I was telling a couple of people earlier when I was out campaigning, and the district runs from Hall Station over to Emerson, up to Resaca, sort of down this line, all of Floyd County, all of Calhoun City, but not Adairsville City, just that area. So that was as close as I got campaigning. That was the most excited people were to see me when I was over on Hall Station Road. Then I found out last year that a bad storm had come through. There was no power, and everybody thought I was George Power driving up the driveway. They're coming out waving, but then they did say,
Shot down your happy wishes call.
yeah, but they did say, well, we don't have any TV, so why don't you come on in and talk to us anyway? But it's very pretty country. I'm a brand new state senator as of January. Barry Loudermilk was my senator. I was happy to have him as my senator. The state decided to redraw the districts and created a new open district. And so I lost him as my senator, but I've enjoyed working with him very well. He's done a great job for the state of Georgia. I think he'll do a great job for the United States in Congress when he's elected next year. And tell you a little bit about myself, since I'm the only one here not from Bartow County. I'm from Floyd County. I spent 8 years on the county commission in Floyd County from 1998 to 2006. My brother was the school board representative for Model during that same time, and I can tell you those are the hardest jobs, local government. For those of you in it, you'll get no argument from me. Those are the hardest jobs that you'll do. That's where the rubber meets the road. Those are tough jobs. I had 8 years of it. I don't want to do it again. We had a good commission over there. We cut property taxes 6 times in those 8 years. We put $22 million in the bank. We paid off all the debt the county had from previous commissions, and those of you in government will know what TANs are, tax anticipation notes. We were the first time in history where we didn't have to use those. We had enough money in the bank where we didn't have to borrow money until property taxes came in November. And so I'm a fiscal conservative, believe in good balanced budgets, but government also has to maintain services as well, which is important. One of the things we also did during that time was get an option on a piece of land on 140. The next to last year I was in office, because we saw the importance of 140, and right next to my grandparents' grave in a cemetery is now the new Lowe's facility in Floyd County. 31 football fields under one roof. We'll be employing about 700 people when it's all said and done. And those are the companies we've got to bring in, because that's the way you cut taxes, is you build the economy, you create jobs, and that's important. Some of the things down at the state I do want to highlight. Education has got $146 million more coming to it this next year. It's been cut pretty hard, but when it's 60% of the budget and the economy crashes, it unfortunately suffers like all the others do. There is $2.6 million also in the budget for school nurses that's been added. There was going to be $1.6 million cut out of the budget for school nutrition. Don't know the local issues here, but that money has been restored into the state budget for this next year. And our schools are important. It's a tough job, as we all know, managing budgets during these times. The best thing we can do, though, is to continue the Lake Points in Emerson, the Lowe's distribution centers, those kind of things that will bring growth to this area. There was a good juvenile justice bill that was out of this last session that I think will help separate those that can't be rehabilitated from those that can be. And I'm sure some of y'all heard the figures of $90-something thousand that it costs per bed in the juvenile system. And we've got to get government more efficient at what they do. And I think this is going to go a long way towards it. As you know, there was the first time some ethics legislation. We had a rule in the Senate from day one. There was an ethics bill adopted by both the House and the Senate of a $75 cap, with a couple of exceptions I didn't like in there, but it's certainly better than anything the state's ever had. And along with that, there was some campaign contribution reform, which will mean a lot of the local offices won't have to be sending those down to the state. It's really just bogging the state up with a lot of things that they don't need. And besides that, the only other Huffstetler was a local guy from Sylvester, Georgia. He didn't file a single form right. He got fined every time, and I was tired of him making me look bad. I'd get on the site, another fine for Huffstetler, and I'd have a heart attack. But he was also from the other party, but that's another story. We also, I think, made some improvements to DOT that will help them be more efficient. DOT had some major problems years ago. We've got a good director now, and he's making a lot of improvements. We expanded design build. I think I heard somebody was in construction that probably knows what design build is. I'll give you an example. When I was on the commission, we built the Rome Braves Stadium with no state money in a year, on time, under budget, completely paid for. And actually now the county still gets 20% of season ticket sales over there. We did that with a design build program at the time was illegal in the state of Georgia. And without getting a lot of details, it really marries up an architect and a contractor and makes them work together instead of working against each other, such as when you build a house and the architect says this, the contractor says this, and all of a sudden your house costs double what it is. The state had already accepted some design build, some legislation this year, improved it, and we also changed the requirements for value engineering from $10 to $50 million. There was really a lot of unnecessary spending being done and overstudying things at the DOT, and it's, I think, in the long run going to save hundreds of million dollars for the state of Georgia and will be a big improvement there. With that, I wanted to hit a few highlights. I don't want to belabor any points, but any questions anybody has on specific bills down at the state or something, I'll try to answer them. And if I can't, Representative Coomer's still here in the back. And I do want to say it was great. You've got a great representative there. He was the governor's floor leader. The governor chose him because of his many abilities, and you're certainly should be proud to have him here as your representative. And I think he's going to have a long career, as long as he can put up with government to do that. So, any questions anybody has? Okay. I need to let Senator Loudermilk go ahead. I usually go ahead of him. I need to let him go first every time, I think, to get on the questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
I'll let that go by. You're saying it came from taxes?
Well, it's property tax.
It actually came from no property tax. It came from a penny sales tax, and it was so important to me that the citizens needed to decide that. That wasn't a decision I needed to make or take out bonds like Gwinnett did. Gwinnett's baseball stadium ended up, they started, ours was $15 million, came in at $14.9. Theirs started out at $21 million, came in at $64 million. Is going to be paid for 30 years in bonds. Ours was a penny sales tax that the people of Floyd County voted for. Said you can vote for it, you can vote against it. You know, this is your decision. They decided to do it. We told them that we would do the right thing and have it done on budget, and it was done on budget in spite of quite a monsoon we had that year.
I have one. I don't know if you'll know about it or not. On our power bill, we have mine's $6.19 for a new power plant. Yes. Why we pay for our power anyway? Why are we paying to have that building built? I can't figure that. I mean, because I live on a fixed income. That is hard on somebody that has so much money for rent, power, food, gas for her car, her medical expenses. I mean, why are we getting taxed so hard? Why are we getting that? I mean, I'm poor. I'm going to admit it. I'm a poor class. Why are we getting that way? Why are we getting taxed so hard?
Well,
yes.
I think there's a good argument, for that. I don't know if you want to try to, I know that was before. Talking about the Plant Bogle surcharge on her power bill.
Yeah, it's to build the other plant. And he'll tell you there. Money to build the other plant. I mean, it's a nuclear plant to start with. Why are we having to be taxed for that? I mean, we pay our power bill as it is.
Taxes.
Yes. Why do we have to pay that? I pay $6.19. Other people pay more. Yes. Why are we paying that?
Well, I'm no apologist for Georgia Power. They got their own folks who can talk to you about why they do what they do. I can tell you when I've asked that question, what they've told me is that by having that fee paid up front by ratepayers, they're paying something on the range of $300 million that ratepayers would have to pay in interest payments down the road. So ratepayers are going to pay them. That's the way it works. And, the end consumer is always the one that pays the bill. Always.
Okay, is the bill going to go lower?
So what they're saying is, either we pay a lower amount now, or we pay a higher amount later. I think it's smart to pay a lower amount now. But now, that's Georgia Power. That's not my issue. That's just what they've said to me.
They tell you have to pay it. I follow.
Oh yeah, you have to pay it.
It don't matter.
It's part of your bill.
What you want. Yeah. Because my power bill was just regular power bill was 70 something.
Yeah.
But I had to pay 95 because of taxes and stuff.
Yeah, there's taxes on a lot of things, a lot of services, and a lot of levels, and it chews off the economy. One thing that we did work on in the state, in the Senate, and would like to see that on the ballot in November of 2014, is the eventual elimination of the state income tax. When you look at states that are growing, Florida, Texas, Tennessee, places like that, that don't have a state income tax, in the long run, if we brought more, a flatter, more spread out tax, many people believe that would improve the economy, that companies would come in with no state income tax, and we would grow. We're not trying to divide up this pie like we are right now for education and healthcare and all like that, but we're trying to make a bigger pie, and we think that would do it. And so we're going to be working hard, quite a few of us, to get that on the ballot as a constitutional amendment next year.
Any other questions?
If there are no other questions, I would like to invite any of you who would like to go through the Jackson House to see how we have it set up.